After 15 years of loyalty, they gave her a cardboard box. But what she had in her back pocket? That would change everything. The air in the conference room was too clean, too still, like the kind of quiet you get before a tornado hits. Emma Blake, 55, sat across from two people who had once sung her praises. Now they couldn't meet her eyes. "Emma," said Cynthia Rayner, Senior VP of Operations at Core Dynamics, "we're restructuring. Your position has been eliminated." The words fell out of her mouth like scripted lines from a corporate playbook, polished and practiced. Next to her, the HR rep from New York headquarters, a young woman named Janelle, slid a manila envelope across the table with quiet finality. "We're moving in a new direction," Janelle added almost cheerfully. Emma didn't flinch. Inside that envelope was the severance package. 2 weeks for every year of service. 3 months of health coverage. Some career transition resources she'd never use. She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "I understand," she said calmly. Cynthia looked relieved, as if she had been bracing for tears or fury. But Emma Blake didn't give them that satisfaction. Not today. What they didn't know was this. Emma had already seen it coming. 3 weeks ago, a stray email thread not meant for her had landed in her inbox. It mentioned legacy overhead reduction and a strategic push for younger innovation voices. The message wasn't subtle. She knew exactly what it meant. They weren't just cutting costs. They were cutting her. But Emma wasn't going out empty-handed. Not by a long shot. When they planned to erase her quietly, she was already 10 steps ahead. Emma left the conference room with the same calm she had walked in with. But as the glass door clicked shut behind her, a slow smile tugged at the corners of her lips. They thought she'd just found out. They had no idea. 3 weeks ago, late on a Friday evening, Emma had been scanning her inbox when a misrouted internal thread landed in her lap like a grenade. Subject line: Next Phase Resource Streamlining Executive Review. The email wasn't even meant for her department, but buried deep in the thread was a bullet point that made her blood freeze. Recommend phase out of Blake, R&D lead. Q2, high-cost legacy talent. Suggest quiet transition. Target younger candidate for innovation optics. Legacy talent. That was how they saw her. Not as the architect of the very algorithm that powered their flagship product, ClearSuite. Not as the woman who led the R&D team through 2 economic downturns and 3 product overhauls. Just a salary too big, attached to a birth date too old. She hadn't said a word. Instead, Emma had gone home that weekend and pulled out her personal laptop. She reopened files she hadn't touched in years, her original notes, performance models, early-stage simulations. She began refining the algorithm again, this time with one goal: to make it unmistakably hers. Everything would be documented: timestamps, hardware logs, even screenshots. She wasn't just building an improved version, she was building a legal wall no one could climb. So by the time they handed her that envelope today, Emma already knew exactly what came next. And Core Dynamics? They had no idea the storm they'd just unleashed. They built their empire on her invention, without giving her a name, but Emma had receipts. The truth hit her like a slap the day she asked the legal team one simple question. Has the company filed the patent yet for the distributed processing algorithm? It was a formality, a routine follow-up, but the associate general counsel on the call froze, blinking awkwardly. "We're still reviewing documentation," he mumbled, "but it's in process." Emma had spent the last decade in tech. She knew corporate hesitation when she heard it. And this wasn't hesitation. This was cover-up. That night, she logged into the company's internal legal archive. She still had access, at least for now. The filing logs for the last 2 years? Nothing. No mention of her algorithm, not even a draft. But what she did find was damning. A confidential strategy memo titled Ownership Clarity, Positioning for IP Consolidation. Her name was nowhere. The document laid out a plan. Core Dynamics would present the algorithm as company property, developed collaboratively, with no single inventor credited. A team effort, they called it. Translation? They would erase her from her own creation. They planned to wait until she was gone, then file the patent under company ownership, with 0 attribution. Emma leaned back in her chair, heart racing. She had built the core architecture of ClearSuite, every line, every decision. And now they were going to steal it with a polite smile and a signature on a severance form? No, not this time. If they wanted to erase her, she'd make damn sure her name was carved into the foundation instead. Emma didn't confront anyone. She didn't raise her voice in board meetings or send fiery emails. Instead, she got to work. Late at night, after the city lights of Chicago flickered on and the office fell silent, Emma sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by old notebooks, external drives, and the faint hum of her personal laptop. She reopened the original framework of the algorithm, the one she had designed before anyone at Core Dynamics even understood what she was building. And then she made it better. Much better. She restructured the core logic, optimized the threading model, improved real-time load balancing by nearly 43%. Her new version was leaner, faster, and far more scalable than the one they'd built the product on. And most importantly, it was hers. She documented every second. Timestamps, hardware logs, version control snapshots. She didn't use a single byte of company-owned equipment. The entire process was conducted from her home network on her personal machines. Within 3 weeks, the new version was complete. And with the help of a patent attorney, referred by a close friend at a rival firm, Emma filed it. Patent filed Emma R. Blake, sole inventor. She stared at the confirmation screen, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: certainty. They could take her job, but they couldn't take what she created. If they thought she'd fade into silence, they forgot one thing. She had just joined the competition, with fire in her hands. It was a quiet Thursday evening when Emma walked into the Arlo, a discreet high-end restaurant tucked into a corner of downtown San Francisco. She wore no badge, no business suit, just a charcoal gray dress, simple but commanding. Across from her, seated in a private alcove, was Marcus Lang, CEO of Titan Tech, Core Dynamics' most formidable competitor. "Emma," he said, rising to shake her hand. "I was hoping they'd be foolish enough to let you go." Emma smiled. "They didn't let me go. They underestimated me." Dinner was polite, professional, but what happened after dessert changed the game entirely. Marcus slid a leather-bound folder across the table. Inside, a 7-figure signing bonus, equity shares in Titan Tech, and exclusive global licensing rights to her patented algorithm. More than a deal. It was a statement. She flipped to the final page, pen in hand. "Are you ready to make it official?" he asked. She didn't hesitate. With a single signature, Emma became Chief Innovation Officer at Titan Tech and the sole gatekeeper to the most powerful algorithm in enterprise software. Her invention would no longer be buried in footnotes. Now it would lead Titan Tech's next generation of products. And Core Dynamics? They were about to find out just how expensive their mistake had been. The industry woke up on Monday thinking it was just another week. By 9 a.m., they realized everything had changed. The press release dropped at exactly 7 a.m. Pacific time. Titan Tech acquires exclusive rights to breakthrough distributed processing algorithm. Dr. Emma R. Blake appointed Chief Innovation Officer. The headline alone was enough to cause a tremor across the tech sector. But the body of the release? That was the earthquake. It named Emma as the sole inventor of the algorithm powering ClearSuite, which, until that moment, the world had assumed was Core Dynamics' crown jewel. It outlined the patent's legal standing and stated, in no uncertain terms, that any future use would require a license from Titan Tech. By 8:15 a.m., the news had hit every major tech blog. By 8:30, CNBC was running a live segment, "The Woman Behind the Code: How One Patent Just Shifted a billion-dollar Market." At 9:03 a.m., Core Dynamics stock dropped 6%. Inside the executive floor of their Chicago headquarters, chaos reigned. Emails flew, phones rang off the hook. Legal, PR, and investor relations were pulled into a war room. By 9:15, the CEO, Robert Hensley, still hadn't made a public comment. But he didn't need to. His silence was the loudest headline of them all. And Emma? She was already seated in her new corner office, 10 stories above Titan Tech's San Francisco headquarters, watching the market react to a truth she'd known for months. She built the future. Now she owned it. They thought they'd buried her algorithm. Now they were scrambling to save their empire built on stolen code. By 9:30 a.m., the executive floor at Core Dynamics had become a pressure cooker. CEO Robert Hensley slammed his office door and demanded the heads of legal, product, and PR in the boardroom, now. "Tell me this isn't real," he snapped, throwing a printout of Titan Tech's press release onto the table. Silence. Then, "It's real," whispered the general counsel, pale and sweating. "And we have a serious problem." Robert paced the room like a caged animal. "How the hell did we not file that patent?" "It was in review," stammered legal, "but there were delays and—" "She must have filed it on her own." "Must have?" he barked. "You think?" At that moment, the head of product spoke up, nervously flipping through his iPad. "Sir, there's more. We've traced the version she patented, and it's not the same one we have." Robert froze. "What do you mean?" "It's better, more efficient. It performs 40% faster than the core algorithm in ClearSuite." Silence fell again. Deeper, heavier. Robert sat down slowly, the reality sinking in. They didn't just lose a patent. They lost the only person who could build it. Across the city, Emma watched the stock ticker on her screen and sipped her coffee. She didn't need revenge. Reality was doing the work for her. They thought they cut off the head of the snake. What they didn't realize? The heart followed her too. By Tuesday morning, Core Dynamics was still reeling from the patent blow. But the real hit was yet to land. At 10:02 a.m., 6 resignation emails hit the inboxes of Core Dynamics' HR department simultaneously. 6 senior engineers, Emma's team. Each letter was polite, each one clear. Effective immediately, they were stepping down. Moments later, LinkedIn updates began popping up like digital fireworks. Excited to join Titan Tech's innovation division. New chapter begins. Grateful for the opportunity. In the war room, Robert stared at the screen in disbelief. "Not just the code," he muttered. "She took the people too." He wasn't wrong, because Emma hadn't just built the algorithm. She'd built a culture, a team bound by mutual respect, loyalty, and belief in something bigger. And now that team stood with her. At Titan Tech's headquarters, the energy was electric. Emma stood at the front of the innovation lab as her team filed in, each face familiar, each one smiling. Miguel, her lead dev, handed her a coffee. "Feels like we're home again." She nodded. "Now let's show them what happens when you don't value the people who build the future. When the empire you built tries to erase you, let them crawl back on their knees to say your name." It came in at 10:45 a.m., a short, desperate email with a subject line that screamed of panic. Subject: Urgent, request for call from Robert Hensley to Dr. Emma R. Blake. Emma, there seems to be a misunderstanding regarding the algorithm's ownership. Could we speak at your earliest convenience? Emma stared at the message for exactly 3 seconds. Then she hit forward, sent it straight to Titan Tech's legal department, and never replied. The ball wasn't in Robert's court anymore. He didn't even have a court left. By Wednesday, the industry had turned completely. Analysts were calling it the algorithm crisis. Core Dynamics stock had fallen another 11%, while Titan Tech soared. Finally, with their back against the wall, Core Dynamics board reached out formally. They were ready to talk. Titan Tech responded, but not with mercy. Emma's terms were clear. Triple the standard licensing rate, ongoing royalties, public acknowledgement naming her as the algorithm's sole inventor. The last one hurt the most, but without it, there would be no deal. When the old guard fell, the new one didn't come to beg. He came to make it right. By Friday morning, headlines across the industry were unified. Robert Hensley steps down amid patent scandal. Core Dynamics ousts leadership team following algorithm crisis. It was over. The empire that once dismissed her had just fired its king. At 4:32 p.m., Emma received a message that felt different. Subject: request for meeting from the office of David Keller. From david.keller@coredynamics.com. Dr. Blake, my name is David Keller. I've been appointed interim CEO of Core Dynamics. I'm reaching out to express sincere interest in resolving the situation respectfully and equitably. We're prepared to publicly acknowledge your contributions and negotiate licensing terms with full transparency. Would you be open to a meeting next week? This wasn't desperation. This was respect. Emma read the email twice. No flattery, no manipulation, just accountability. She forwarded it to Titan Tech's legal team with one note. Let's schedule it, but we set the table. She didn't just win her battle. She lit a path for others to follow. 6 months later, Emma Blake stood behind a sleek black podium at the Women in Tech Global Summit. the room filled with executives, engineers, and rising innovators from around the world. Gone were the days she had to fight to be heard in the back of a conference room. Now, she was the keynote. Her name appeared on banners, her face on the event program. Her story had become a case study at Stanford, a topic in law school classrooms, and a source of inspiration on startup blogs and tech podcasts. Emma took a breath and looked out across the crowd. "You don't need permission to protect what you've built," she said. "And no one, not a company, not a contract, can take away what's rightfully yours if you document and believe in your work." Applause erupted. Afterward, a line of young engineers waited to speak with her. One woman, no more than 25, said, "Your story changed how I work. I started keeping personal devlogs just in case." Emma smiled and replied, "Smart move. Don't just write code. Write your name into the history of it." A year ago, they erased her. Now they're rebuilding in her image. 1 year to the day after Emma walked out of Core Dynamics with a cardboard box and her dignity intact, she sat in her sleek glass office overlooking the bay. The quarterly report had just landed. Titan Tech had officially surpassed Core Dynamics in market valuation. For the first time in history, a soft knock on the door. It was Marcus Lang, Titan Tech's CEO, holding 2 champagne flutes and a bottle of Dom Perignon. "Thought this moment deserved bubbles," he said, grinning. Emma smiled and stood, setting aside the report. Not out of surprise, but quiet satisfaction. They clinked glasses. "To valuation?" Marcus toasted. Emma shook her head gently. "To validation," she corrected. Across the country, Core Dynamics was scrambling. New CEO David Keller had implemented sweeping reforms, open credit for individual innovators, transparent IP filings, mentorship pipelines for women in engineering. And what was the blueprint? Emma's program. They weren't just trying to recover. They were trying to become what she had already built. And that, Emma thought, was the real legacy. She never chased revenge. She chased her name, and now it was etched where it belonged. Forever. The stage was set. National Technology Innovation Conference, the biggest event of the year. The ballroom was packed with over 1,000 industry leaders, reporters, founders, and aspiring engineers. And at the center of it all, under the spotlight, Dr. Emma R. Blake. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. "Please welcome our keynote speaker, the woman whose story redefined innovation ownership, Chief Innovation Officer at Titan Tech, Dr. Emma Blake." The applause was thunderous. Emma stepped up to the podium, wearing a deep blue suit and quiet confidence. "I stand here today not because I wanted to make headlines," she began, "but because I refused to be a footnote." Her voice was steady, her gaze unwavering. For too long, the people who build the future have gone unnamed. Invisible hands behind billion-dollar empires. That ends now. Not just for me, for all of us. That day, she didn't just share her story. She passed the torch. Later, alone in her office, she looked out over the San Francisco skyline, fingers tracing the edge of her old Core Dynamics badge, now framed on the wall under a small brass plaque. The system tried to erase her. Instead, she rewrote it. At 56, she hadn't just succeeded. She'd made history.